Okay, everyone. Hello. I'm your host, Lauren Magee. I want to personally thank each and every one of you for joining today. We're really excited about our topic and our discussions. We think that what we have to share today is going to resonate with you. In today's webinar, it's actually a continuation of our Tradeparency trilogy series. The first episode took place last month, and it was all about unleashing the power of precision pricing, meaning for those of you out there still using a spreadsheet to manage your pricing by state with a different tab for each market, and it's become so cumbersome and you've got conflicted copies and it's really painful for you to manage, that discussion was for you. So go back to our website, request a recording of the discussion if you missed it, and you can watch it at your convenience. But today's discussion will be around mastering compliance and risk management as it relates to trade spend, bill backs, depletion allowances, all those fun things specific to our lovely three-tier system here in the US. But before we jump into that discussion, we're going to review a few housekeeping items. One, you probably noticed that your microphone is muted. That doesn't mean we don't want you to participate. Please do chat with us, your questions, your comments, your thoughts using the Zoom QA feature. You do have the option to submit your questions publicly or anonymously if you wish. So please do participate. Don't let that hold you back. And then we'll allow some time at the end for all of our panelists and guests to answer questions. Two, we are recording this webinar, so we'll send you, all registrants, a link to the recording to watch at your leisure. And once you're done watching the webinar today, we ask that you keep the window open because you're going to see a post-webinar pop-up or survey pop-up afterwards. So keep your window open. Your feedback is so invaluable to us. It's what we use to plan our future webinar topics. So as a thank you for providing feedback and also a flat out bribe, we're going to, for filling out the survey, we're going to send you a complimentary Andavi branded Yeti cup, a couple other things to include in that as well. So if you're wondering why we're asking you for your mailing address, that's why. A Yeti cup will be coming your way. And last, this is indeed a trilogy series, and we're ending it with a bang at the end of the month, right before Halloween, with a comprehensive product demo. So plan to join and see how Tradeparency works from the inside out, the outside in, all the ways. So that's going to be really exciting on October 30th. Okay, let's jump to the fun stuff and introduce our guests. Which slides here real quick. Okay, we're going to start backwards. We're going to start from the left and go to, or the right and go to the left. Haha. So for those of you who don't know me yet, I am Andavi Senior Customer Success Manager. Chances are I've talked to you a ton. So you know me, you know my role, and I work with a lot of our partners and our across the products. But more exciting, let's talk about Andrew Tierce, our technical consultant with Tradeparency. He's really the man behind the curtain who's making sure that, you know, things are staying and working well, right? Andrew, you want to say hello?
Absolutely. Absolutely. Anybody that's implemented Tradeparency has had a lot of interactions with me. I've been with Andavi a little bit over 2 years, and have really enjoyed working with Tradeparency. I think it's an awesome tool, and it's been great to meet all the customers and, continued support and be able to help with the product and all of those kind of things. So thank you.
Yeah. Next in line, Tracy Leighton. You've probably also seen her too as our Senior Director of Product Solutions and Design. She's got her fingerprints all over all the products. Tracy?
Hi, everyone. Great to be here. If we haven't met yet, we probably will sometime soon. Tradeparency has been a part of our family now for a little over 2 years since that acquisition, and we're really thrilled with how the product has grown over that period of time and where it's continuing to go. And I'm here today just to give you some tidbits and ideas for ways that you can best use the product.
Yes. And most excitingly, our, drum roll, please, our guest of honor, Larisa. We want to welcome you from Banfi. We're just so excited to hear from you today and share your experiences. So will you give everyone kind of a brief overview of your role with Banfi?
Sure, absolutely. I'm the director of IT here, working a lot with our business intelligence platforms, and I've been here for about 24 years. Started
Wow.
way back when, working in compliance, and then worked my way into the IT department, and I've been here ever since. So I'm very excited to present today.
Awesome. Thank you for joining us. All right. So what are we going to talk about, right? Let's give a brief overview of what kind of the things that we're going to be discussing today. So we're going to be talking about how standardizing deal and pricing management can avoid unnecessary risk and challenges for collaboration both internally within your organizations and externally with your distributor partners. And today we're going to hear about one organization's, aka Banfi, account of the challenges and solutions that they now rely on to provide one source of truth with reliable and accurate data with visibility for all, mitigating risk with a system of checks and balances, using automation for time-saving efficiencies, and of course, we're going to be talking about compliance tracking because that is the secret sauce. All of this is to ensure maximum profitability while maintaining fairness in business operations. So we're going to be kind of going through, we've got a set of questions that we want to ask Larisa, and then we're going to be kind of elaborating on how that works with the Tradeparency product. So without further ado, our first question, let's talk a little about what initial challenges your team faced, Larisa. And so we'd love to hear from you. Why did you turn to find a solution? What pain points were you facing?
So what had happened was we were in a position where we had to downsize. And at the time, a couple of years ago, we had a pricing department, a pricing director that managed all of our pricing and managed those price structures within Excel files. And then we lost that role. So that role was removed. And then what ended up happening is we basically inherited these Excel files. And at that point in time, the field had to get involved, and nobody knew what the source of truth was, what was updated, what wasn't updated. When we got these files, there was no business rules put in place. You didn't really know what the state tax laws were within each market, what those nuances were. And then for every single market and every single distributor, we had a different file, and that file had a separate sheet for every single brand that we had. So there was no way of consolidating or pulling that data together. The information wasn't accurate. So the FOBs that were being put into that file was stagnant. It was dead. If we had a price change, it was never updated. We didn't really know what the GPs were that were accurate coming from, that we worked up with a distributor. So it started to get to a point where upper management and corporate was like, hey, we need one source of truth, and we need to be able to pull these files together and run these reports where we can look at our pricing across the country for chain business, for independent business, and see what it's doing to our GPs. And right now we don't have that visibility. And it just became increasingly difficult for us to make sense of anything out of those files. So that's
absolutely
the Tradeparency.
Oh, I love it. Thank you for sharing all of your challenges, right? And I'm sure you're not alone in feeling those kind of shifts, especially as you were forced to downsize, right? That wine industry is changing. You're having to adapt and move, and sometimes that results in a loss of a position. So, and absolutely, if you don't have all of the information stored in one place, you kind of left.
Yeah, and it usually is IT that inherits that.
Yes. Okay, so what I think we heard you say as a recap here is that you had the information stored in stagnant, unsecure locations. We talked about spreadsheets, emails, notepads, sticky notes. Gosh, if it was stored on someone's phone or something like that, and if you have turnover, there goes your data. So that's I'm sure some folks are feeling that same challenge in the industry. Errors in data, and when you have errors, it can equate to not only frustrations but negative financial impacts. Andrew, have you seen this play out with our customers?
Absolutely, over and over, right? Sometimes there's a forgotten market. There's a region that's got a wrong FOB for months and even years in some cases. There was supposedly a change that rolls out to one of the price levels, and it just kind of gets forgotten to be changed. So then it doesn't get communicated to the distributor. People get busy and they're just paying the bill. They don't not necessarily looking too much, into what's actually in that. And I mean, those things add up. We're talking hundreds and if not thousands of cases at some dollar differences. And I mean, it adds up very, very quickly. And, not to mention having inaccurate things like Larisa mentioned around, maybe tax changes or freight updates or, those kind of things.
Right.
So it can definitely happen. And yeah, it's very, very common from what I've seen. And people are very happy to have it consolidated in one place,
Yeah.
for
If
those
this is
reasons.
affecting you, let us know in the chat. We want to hear from you. So you're not alone. We also heard you say that there was no visibility. You needed one source of truth, right? So another, not having your data in one consolidated place, but also not having it tied to the appropriate programs and budgets or geocodes or whatever, right, that you have going on so that it
Yeah.
all ties together
And to
nicely.
add to that, especially when you're talking about chain and on-premise programs, it was a challenge for the team to constantly have to go back to the DM to ask them what the price is, what is the accurate price, having to pull each of those files separately. That was very time consuming.
Absolutely. Yeah, that's a good one to know. We also heard no checks and balance. With a manual process, you don't have any guardrails around what's allowed or not allowed, no accountability, no validation. And so having a tool definitely would help with that as well. And then the last one here you mentioned was obviously the loss of a dedicated resource. And that can be due to downsizing, someone leaving, choosing to go a different way, and then resulting in potential data loss. All
We
right.
actually had
Well,
had a really unique thing that happened with one of the files. If you remember, Larissa, do you remember this where the person had left and they had locked their spreadsheet?
Oh, yeah. And then
oh,
we didn't
Yeah,
know the
yes.
password.
yeah. And so that's always fun, right? Like even that kind of thing can happen, and then you're like, you can't even edit it anymore. It won't even let you, copy things out of it. It becomes kind of a mess. So we get to
Yeah.
avoid all of those situations in the future, right?
Absolutely. And someone owning that and then leaving the company and now trying to make sense of what's going on is not a good place to be. So definitely need a software solution for sure.
Well, and they're also very fortunate to have someone who's been with them for 24 years, who remembers all the history. So that helps too.
True. True.
I think that
Um,
is one of the keys that we have with the application, right? Is to coming at it from a perspective of Excel has its purposes, but as a solution, it is not something that is extensible to this type of resource. So we're thrilled
100%.
to be able to say we can replace Excel here.
yep. All right, moving on to the next question. So this one's going to be focused more around deal management and how has the Tradeparency deal management solution helped?
Yeah, so many ways. Once we got all the information uploaded, cleaned up what needed to be cleaned up, the team then had a fresh slate to start with. And we now control items that are set up. So our information that's set up internally in our product information system gets fed into Tradeparency. We make sure that the data is accurate, lined up to the correct brand. We pull in the FOBs. So we're controlling what those FOBs are. That all gets pushed correctly. And then the team now has a basis for also maintaining their freight on top of that. So freight gets maintained, it updates all of their deals at the same time. They're not sitting there doing one sheet at a time, one file at a time. So they can manage the tax information in there, the tax information we do here internally. They can manage their freight, and then now they can create their deals, and it's a one-stop shop. Not only can they manage their deals, but the output that they get out of it in terms of the report. Sorry, I'm battling something for weeks now.
Oh no, of course.
Grid, I know. The price grid itself is very clean and organized when they print it and share it with the distributor. Before, it was this mishmash Excel file with color coding. It was just so much information. Now you print that report, it's clean, it's organized. If it's part of a price group or product group, and we can maintain that in there as well. They have a separate tab for each price, for each product that will load onto that sheet. So it's very clean. We can also control how they're inputting the information and whether or not it should get approved based off of a specific guardrail. So if we know that we're supposed to be working within a certain GP, we can set that guardrail so that it requires the director's approval before that deal gets created. So we have the
Nice.
commission side of it, which keeps things in balance. And then just efficiency, you know, when we're dealing with massive price changes, for example, that we need to push out to the entire field, that is a lot easier now. We change the pricing internally. It goes and publishes it out to the system, and that system then pulls together the deals that they have in there, sets the new start dates and end dates, and then they go ahead and approve, make any changes they need to, and it's done. So it does save a lot of time on that side as well.
And you're kind of unique in that way, where you allow the end users, the reps, to be able to enter in that data. That's not everybody gives that grace, permission, responsibility, leniency to do that. So that's pretty good.
For us, it was multiple reasons. One, we lost a resource, so that was part of it. And we didn't do it irresponsibly, right? So we did a lot of training with the team. The directors are involved, very much so, but it does solve for, it keeps the sales managers accountable, right? So now they should know their pricing. They should be very intimate with their pricing, and they own it. So we do allow them to manage their own pricing, but it is very much reviewed and approved by their director.
Yes. Absolutely. All right, well, let's make sure we heard you correctly here and recap what you mentioned. And so you talked about everything here: accurate data, accountability, being efficient, and having visibility for all. Anything we mentioned here? I think you touched on the distributor freight for being efficient. Did you have?
Yeah, that was a huge one, because that was probably one of the biggest data points that was always inaccurate in our Excel files, because first of all, they weren't taking into account, the sales managers weren't sometimes taking into account 9-liter, conversions when it came to tax information. If freight was changed, and sometimes depending on the market, freight changes, pretty frequently, things wouldn't get updated. So the GPs were not accurate. And it just was too time consuming for them to do. So having that module inside of Tradeparency where we can manage the distributor freight now, and we review it a couple of times a year, that gets pushed out. And then if they need to make any changes in their deals now as a result of a freight decrease or increase, they have visibility to that, and they can easily do that within Tradeparency.
Right. And in today's environment, as things happen that are kind of outside of the norm and outside of being predictable, like for today, we were just talking about before we jumped on how the ports are on strike, right? And Tracy, how could the team use that type of information and be able to adjust things easily within the solution, given unpredicted world events?
Exactly. I don't know that we could actually help the strike, unfortunately. I wish we could.
No, we can't help the strike.
We're not a magic solution, but in terms of, the ability of the system is to change things on the fly.
Exactly.
The goal is that when you have products that you change distributor on, that your distributor agreement shifts, that your distributor is acquired, which is happening more often recently than expected in some cases. You're able to take things down to your frontline price on any deal that's associated with it and make changes once that affect that SKU for that distributor state combination or distributor state combinations, if it's the same distributor with the same deal across states, which does happen sometimes, and allow you to have that flexibility in the tool.
Awesome.
Larisa, you mentioned your directors approving deals. Do you guys have any guardrails on kind of the amount that kind of triggers that approval, or is that kind of every deal? Because I think that's something that's pretty common, having to have some parameters, right? Like is it a certain percentage?
It is. Yeah, we use the GP. We do it based off the GP that they're building into the deal.
Gotcha. So nobody can just throw a deal out there where you're making 5%, right? For example.
No. And that's why we did that, because in the old ways of the Excel files, there was some interesting GPs there.
It's like, I'm sure the distributor likes that deal a lot, right?
Definitely. And that is its own guardrail, right? And that's one of the things that we've tried to put into the system, because you do have those people that believe they're doing the right thing, but they are in a sense going rogue, and they're affecting your bottom line in a way that you would prefer they not. So being able to have that internal visibility, one stop for everything, can bring a little more light into it rather than Excel, which is great.
Absolutely.
All right. Well, for the sake of time, we're going to move on to the other side of this, which is invoice management. And you guys are trendsetters in this department. But the question here is, what impact did automating invoice processing have? And before we kind of hear your story, Larissa, I want to hear from Tracy and how you guys are kind of setting yourself apart with
Sure.
the AI invoice.
It's a lot of us here at Andavi have experience in the industry. I think most of us on this call on the Andavi side have been in the industry in one way or another over the years. And there is a certain level of tedium with the invoice process that I think we've heard about, if not had to experience, when you're in the field having to approve invoices or be responsible for paying them. And in the old days, it would be a piece of paper that got shoved into a folder. In the middle old days, it was an email with a PDF that had to be emailed around, and then someone had to follow up on it. And we really wanted to break out of that mold and bring it into the 21st century, which sometimes is a little hard for wine and spirits to do. So what we've done is we've used machine learning. We have put in a module where we've fully automated invoice processing. So you don't even have to enter the invoice line by line into our software, which is the way that things used to be in the nowadays. So we're in tomorrow, which is that you take a scan of a PDF, you take a CSV file, you take an Excel file, you upload them into the system. And with our machine learning tool, it reads a majority of invoices. I'm not saying we do them all, but we do a lot of them, and gives you all of that information. And then it matches to the deals right there in the system. So we've taken a lot of the pain and suffering out of the invoice process and freed up your assets, because most people that you have working for you are probably worth more than entering an invoice line by line over and over again. So that's what we've really tried to do with this module. And we're seeing great results in the field. We do cover 80% of the invoices that are out there today in one way or another. There are some small distributors that we don't cover because of popularity, but we're always willing to have an open door for those if we have the right ask from the right client.
Right.
But I think we're covering almost all of the distributors you work with. Isn't that right, Larissa?
Yes, definitely a very large percentage for sure.
Yeah. Okay, well, let's hear a little bit on your perspective, Larissa. How did automating invoice processing have hopefully a positive impact for your team?
It was a very big change for us, all positive. Just to kind of give you a frame of reference, the way we used to do it before in our old credit claim system is we didn't process anything by SKU. So they would get the invoice, our DMs would get the invoice, and they would basically put everything to the brand, because it was time consuming to do it down to the varietal level. The problem that created for us was we really didn't have visibility into what we were spending by each varietal, what is really going on, where our percentage of business is coming out at, what the expenses that we're generating throughout the year, where is that really coming from, and what do those numbers look like? So when we turned to Tradeparency and we had the opportunity then to take everything down to the SKU, linking it to the deal so that we can actually see what is coming out at each deal level. And then on top of that, telling our DMs like, well, don't worry, you don't have to input it in line by line though, because the initial thing was, oh my God, what do you mean? Like, we're going to have to go down by SKU? Like, that's a lot of work. But then for the most part, before the AI of the PDF files, a big portion of our markets are in DC. So that, a big portion of that covered our distribution in terms of, the invoices were automatic and they were already templated. So our team was already set up for that. And it's great because they pull those files in and it matches it up against what they have in their system. And it just keeps everybody accountable, right? It keeps the DM accountable to make sure that he's managing and maintaining his deal structures and pricing within the system. And it keeps the distributor accountable as well, because let's say we did have some sort of new deal that was put in place, or DAs that shifted, or pricing that changed. And, everyone gets busy. If something wasn't updated on their end either, there's visibility to that, because now you can easily capture and match the deals that match. But if you didn't have anything that tied to that DA, You get a nice clean file that comes out of the system that can then be shared with the distributor, outlining exactly where the issues are, and then those can get corrected, right at that point in time, as opposed to getting lost in an email trail somewhere, which is,
Yes,
I
it
mean, we don't
happens.
know how many emails we get in a given day. That is a very real life, scenario.
Right.
Yeah,
Right. And then there's
absolutely.
these extra pressures, right, of closing the books on time, of monthly, quarterly. And if you don't have everything squared away and negotiated and tied up nicely, you're also tempted to just close the books, just pay it. It's just easier just to pay it, right?
Exactly.
And let's just be done with it. And so this can avoid potential losses there. When you have everything outlined so quickly, you can respond back right away with, hey, that's not exactly what we're seeing, season discrepancy either, you know, maybe a misentry on their part or something they needed to update in their system. So yeah.
For sure. Yeah, it's definitely been a lifesaver for sure.
Oh, Andrew, anything you want to add on this topic?
Yeah, I think that, and I think Larissa would agree with me. There's somewhat of something kind of magical that happens when you say that, look, invoices are going to be put into this system and they're going to be paid with data that comes from this system, right? So if you guys want to have your distributors paid, you now have
Mm-hmm.
to put the correct deals and
Yeah.
consolidate and put all of that into the system.
Yep.
Um, and I don't know, maybe if you want to comment, Larissa, but something that happens during implementation almost every single time when we're doing this is that all of a sudden the numbers that are in the spreadsheet are now under review, right? Because now
Yeah.
you're going to put them all into a system and you're going to review them. So,
Mm.
wait, I didn't mean that, DA. Hold on, let me change it
Yeah.
before I send it to you to be loaded, right?
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
and that in and of itself, right? Like that process that just naturally happens, is a savings key, not only on the line by line of the invoice, that thing that happens, the time savings in the input, and then to, what you were talking about a little bit before is that now you can actually analyze, you can take it to the next step, right? And analyze kind of the results of matching those invoices to those particular deals, right? Because how hard was it to do that before? You're trying to dig through a spreadsheet
Oh,
to
yeah.
use a item number to, I mean, it's
And
really difficult to
and
do
it
that.
wasn't being done because they were
Right.
processing everything by the brand.
By the brand,
Right,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Yeah.
right.
Mm-hmm.
And, in
Yeah,
that
so
case,
I'm
it was
sure that
impossible to match.
exactly. And I'm sure that what you're seeing is even if it's a 5 cent savings or a 50 cent savings or
Absolutely.
goodness gracious and dollar savings, I'm sure that those numbers are there. And I'm not asking you to disclose, but I will say in talking with all of the clients that have started using the AI tool so far is that we are definitely seeing an almost immediate return on investment because there is such a difference between both the impact on the invoice level, but also in the being able to retask some of your employees to do things differently. Now, you've got a little bit of a different scenario, Larissa, right? Because you're tasking this into the field. So this is giving you a safety check, right? Because before it
Yeah.
would just be, I set the deal, I approve the invoice, boom, you go. And now
Yeah.
you've got that in place that you can really see the truth of what's going on, which I think is
Absolutely.
probably most helpful for you. Yeah.
Yeah. And we also
Mm.
have our, in our accounting department, we have our team also then reviewing what they submit
Okay.
into accounting.
Great.
So there's another department that's looking at that even still
Mm-hmm.
to say, okay, why are this is being short paid or what is this invoice? So there is that too, there's a little bit more
Wonderful.
detail now that person in accounting has to analyze and make sure that the invoice they're paying and approving that there's no issue with.
Yeah. Well, that's a perfect
Sounds great.
segue. I'm sure the
Yeah.
folks in finance love what you're doing on on the compliance front. So we'll click kind of transition to the next question. And this is really where the rubber meets the road here, right? What insights have you learned from the supporting analytics that have become most important? And we know that you guys are taking it a step further with compliance tracking. So what are you doing there?
So yeah, it was great for us because we were relying in the past, we were relying on the team to just give us their case rates, right? To say, hey,
Yeah.
give me an estimated price support that you're going to be an average blend across your deals by item, by brand, and then we would use that to build our budget report. So our financials, all of our budgeting at the beginning of the year is based off that number that they just gave us with no backup, no
Yeah.
backup, right? So now
Blind trust.
yeah, exactly. Blind trust, right? And but now that we have Tradeparency, what we do is we utilize the percentage of business that they've allocated through for all of their deals within the system, which they're supposed to be maintaining, but we can actually keep track of that now. So we utilize that towards the end of the year, and we go across every market for each distributor, pull what that blended DA is, price support for those SKUs for those distributors, and that is what we use to build our budget for the year. So once we build our budget and we have our financial books closed throughout the year, then we start tracking our budget versus expenses. So we have our loss plan, or the budgeted amount that was planned out for the beginning of the year. And then throughout the year now, we can start tracking based off the depletions that are coming in. And we get those depletions from VIP right now, based on the depletions that are coming in at each one of those different varietals, based off of the budgeted blended DA they gave us, and then actually what's being processed. So now we can see, okay, well, you're over budget. You know, why are you over budget? And then we can take it down to the actual SKU that they're over budget on. And now we can look at the deals tied back to that specific item, and we can do some analysis there. So we have that part of it, and it's a game changer, as you can imagine.
Right. Yeah. And when you get it down all the way to the SKU level, it kind of helps you tell the story. Be like, oh yeah, we had a one-time buy from a major chain. Oh, that wasn't, budgeted, but we'll take it, right? So, and kind of help tell the story.
But then that being said too, you expect to see a lift in the volume.
Yes.
And if there's no lift, then now we're not doing it again. Right. So throughout the year, if they do then add a deal and and let's say that deal, is supposed to generate high volume, and it also actually increases their goal, let's say, that they initially budgeted for the year. And we can then say, all right, we just had a blended DA change. How much is this going to actually take us over, what we budgeted? So now, our financial team has those numbers and, can make certain decisions based off of that.
Yeah. Awesome. Well, so what we've heard you say. Yeah. Just kind of quickly kind of recap that you need to trust but verify that what was promised to be executed was actually depleted. And then you're ensuring that you have visibilities into actuals versus planned, as well as tying data directly for DA compliance tracking, and then being confident in the payouts that are truly earned. And I know, Andrew, you kind of have a story here about additional savings and opportunities there.
Yeah, I think one of the most difficult things is to, like Larisa, you just said, is trying to analyze, are these pricing strategies, right, actually creating this lift? A lot of times it's hard to get to that data. It takes a lot of work. Usually it's one-time work too. It has to be done, multiple times, once a year, twice a year, once a quarter, whatever you choose to do. Say you have 4 deal levels on a particular brand, on a particular label, right? And they said they're going to do 30, 20, 25, 25, right, on the deal levels, but you see at the end of the year the deep discount that they said was only going to be 25% of the volume. Well, they've pushed 55% of their volume into, right? And it's, then you can kind of refine the deal levels, right? Like the next year you can say, hey, guys, this is not working. Year over year, we were basically the same on this, and you pushed all of these sales into this deep discount bucket. Let's revise that deep discount deal a little bit, right? Let's back up the DA just a bit. Let's, maybe have another level, right?
And we had that happen, actually. We had several markets analyze what was going on and take their deals from like 8 deals down to 4.
Right.
So just based off of what they were seeing in the data.
Yeah.
Right. That's awesome.
We've seen several clients that have made huge savings on their overall DA spend by using that exact same process.
Well,
Definitely.
Andrew, you must be in sync with the attendee who just submitted the question anonymously, but they're asking, and this might be for you, Tracy. I heard you say that Tradeparency saves a supplier money. Does the
Yes,
savings outweigh the cost of the system? But
most,
they want to
yeah.
hit straight to the point, you
Yeah,
know?
that's fine.
So
Yeah, most definitely. We are not trying to break the bank with this application. I think it's moderate pricing will definitely be seen based upon your level of DA. We do have part of it is based upon the volume of invoices you process. But I think even if you just use the deal module, you will see a cost savings if you're in a situation similar to Larisa. I have not yet heard of a client in the 2 years we've been working with this product that has lost money. Very small suppliers may break even to begin with, but that's because you already have great processes. So what we're looking at, if you're a small supplier, is giving you room to grow and expand, get into your regional and national chain pricing, where that penny becomes so important, and being able to monitor that penny becomes even a bigger conversation when you're working with your distributors. I tell you, it just happens every single time, the entire time I've been working in this industry. So I do believe that if you go through the process with us and see the investment summary, that you would find that the return on investment could be easily gained in the first year.
perfectly said, Tracy. All right. Well, this has been such a fun, lively discussion, but we are bumping up on time. So we're going to kind of wrap things up. There were a couple more questions that came in, so we'll go ahead and follow up with you one-on-one after the webinar. But we just want to thank everyone for joining us today. This was so
Most
fun.
definitely.
And we
Yeah.
want to,
Such a pleasure to have you, Larisa. Thank you so much for being
yes.
here.
Thank you guys so much.
Thank you. We hope that you found the information valuable and comforting, even to know that there are solutions, that, your shared challenges, and there's solution for those shared challenges for those of us who are in this industry. And again, thank you, Larisa. Huge thank you for putting it all out there, sharing it with us, and kind of just talking about your experiences so candidly. And with us, we hope that we can continue to grow and learn together. And as a reminder, for those of you who are joining us, please stay logged on to the Zoom to complete that post-webinar survey. Look for the pop-up to come right when we close up the survey, and then do include your address for the complimentary gift. As another reminder, at the end of the month, right before Halloween, we are having the product demo. So if you want to see how Tradeparency can help you save thousands of dollars within weeks, come to that demo and you'll be able to kind of see what we've been talking about all this time. Pre-register today to get the recording and to save your spot. So you can go to our website and do that right now. And that's about it from all of us here at Andavi, where we are working with you to transform transactional data into actionable intelligence. We want to wish you a wonderful day, and thank you to our partner Banfi for joining us, and to all of our other partners who were able to participate live.
Thank
All
you.
right. Take care,
Have a great day,
everyone.
everybody.
Bye-bye.
Thanks, Larissa. Thanks all.
Bye.
Bye.
Thanks.